This is the Chris DeGaulle Show podcast.
Okay, guys, let's just rip. And Chris DeGaulle.
Chris DeGaulle. Chris, thanks for being with me tonight.
Chris DeGaulle.
I'm joined now by Chris DeGaulle.
Now, at least his digital stream isn't weak. It's Chris DeGaulle.
The Chris DeGaulle podcast is presented by Harvey Durham Insurance. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at harveydurham.com.
It's Tuesday, August 31st, final day of the month. I thank you so much for downloading the Chris DeGaulle Show podcast. Coming up today, our weekly chat with economist Steve Moore. House Republicans, not enough of them, say no to extending the debt limit. They will not abide the $3.5 trillion spending proposal. Now that it's been a week, does Steve think things have changed? He was not very sure, as I was sure. He was not very sure that this thing would be stopped last week. I don't know if his mind has changed or not. We will ask him. By the way, the market does not seem to be moved at all by what's happened in Afghanistan or anything else. Some of the left is calling for the Federal Reserve Chair to step down. Not sure what that's all about. We'll get into all of that with Steve Moore today. Colonel Kurt Schlichter stops by, former Army colonel, my colleague and senior columnist at Town Hall. His Kelly Turnbull book series, everybody loves. If you like, if you're a favorite of military and espionage thriller fiction, that's what he writes, this Kelly Turnbull series. He's got 6 of them. You should check them out. So we've got all that coming up. Quickly, just as I start this podcast, I see the Department of Defense spokesperson is speaking, this Admiral Kirby, who looks like he's perpetually... I've never seen a guy that looks... He just has a face that looks constantly in terror, which maybe he is. I don't know, but Bill Hemmer, Dana Perino are interviewing him on Fox right now. He's speaking on this, the 20th anniversary of 9/11 and us getting out of Afghanistan. Biden's supposed to speak today. We're supposed to treat this like this is a great, big, important, successful day. I have more thoughts on this. I know Colonel does. But let's listen into this exchange with Kirby.
Make every effort we can to help them find safe passage.
Okay, and I heard you say yesterday, but just to quote the commander-in-chief, he said, if there's American citizens left, we're going to stay to get them all out. That did not happen, Admiral.
The military mission is over, Bill. We are no longer on the ground in Afghanistan to facilitate that kind of safe passage. But that doesn't mean that the administration or the government is going to turn a blind eye to trying to help them get home. And it's not unlike we do in other countries around the world when we have Americans that are stranded or need help getting out. We have a lot of tools available to us to help facilitate that passage, and we're going to be focused on that. I would remind that 6,000 did get out, and 123,000 total. The vast majority were Afghans in need, Afghan allies of ours, our interpreters and translators. I mean, there was an enormous effort to make as much as we could of the time we had.
Yes, sir. I'm looking at the population makeup of that country now, between the Taliban leadership, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Haqqani. Are we less safe now than we were 20 years ago?
I would tell you that we are going to stay vigilant about whatever terrorism threat might emanate from Afghanistan. I would also tell you, Bill, that the serious terrorist threats that we have to our interest in the region and to our people, to our allies and partners, have not metastasized out of Afghanistan for a very, very long time. They have moved elsewhere in the region, Levant, North Africa, and that's where you see us, again, continue to have
but in the first part of your
capability of going after these terrorists.
You did not say yes or no on that in the first part of your answer there. I mean, how do you gauge the level of security we have now, given the group that I just laid out here?
We have much better capabilities there in that part of the world than we did pre-9/11. Our intelligence capabilities are vastly more networked and sophisticated. We have a robust presence in the region. You saw us in just the last couple of days, Bill, take over-the-horizon counterterrorism strikes to eliminate imminent threats. We still have the capability, and I would argue that it's a greater capability now, 20 years later, than it was before we were hit on 9/11.
Admiral, on that over-the-horizon capability, have any of the neighboring countries offered to allow us to base out of there so that we can do it better?
We're still working with some neighboring nations to see what options might be available, Dana, but I can tell you that even without those agreements, while geography still is a bit of a constraint, we still have the capability. And again, you saw that in just the last couple of days. We're going to keep working with neighboring nations to see what options might be available, but we do have capabilities right now.
Here's a question that we're getting a lot. and I understand there's a difference maybe between Kabul and the rest of the country, but Americans really wondering, why didn't we destroy more of that military equipment rather than leaving it behind for the Taliban to possibly use?
So there's two things here. One, let's talk about the airport. As you heard General McKenzie say, some 70 aircraft were there, as well as some mine-resistant vehicles and Humvees. All of that stuff was rendered inoperable to the Taliban. So they can take pictures and walk around and look at them, but they can't fly those things, they can't drive those vehicles, they can't use any of the systems that we have at the airport. The other issue is, what did we turn over to the Afghan forces as we retrograded out of the country, and what they did with it? And of course we know that there's quite a bit of material in the batch that the Afghans had that the Taliban now have access to. There's no question about that. But what I would tell you about this, Dan, is the kinds of equipment we're talking about, while certainly there's a lethality component to it, it doesn't pose a threat to the United States. It doesn't pose a threat to neighboring nations. I mean, these are not the kinds of things that the Taliban can make great strategic use out of.
Another thing, there is a report, and I would love to get your take on it, that the American government is having to make a tough decision and possibly leaving behind military contract working dogs. Is that the case?
I'm going to have to look at that one. I did not know that there was an issue with military working dogs. Obviously, we're partial to our working dogs, and they are heroes in their own right. But I was not aware of that particular report.
All right. My last question and before I turn it back over to Bill real quick. One of the things that's been frustrating is sometimes what we were hearing from the White House or in the State Department did not turn out to actually be true on the ground. And I think about these interpreters, the ones that actually did help the military. I understand the military operation is over. But we're tracking one guy in particular, and the Taliban surrounded his area. They all have guns. They committed executions last night. And these are the things he's seeing on the ground. And I think when some of the veterans took matters into their own hands to try to get their guys out, I feel like they don't think that the military operation is completely over.
I understand that. And I want to say we're grateful for the interest and the efforts that so many veterans and veterans groups have expended in the last few weeks to help us on the ground, help our troops on the ground, locate and move to safety so many thousands of people. We share their concerns. Believe me, there's not a person here that doesn't share those same concerns and that same obligation to all those people that helped us. And we're heartbroken that we weren't able to get every single one of them out before the end of the month, but the environment was definitely changing in a more dangerous tilt in the last couple of days, and we just couldn't do it. But we're going to stay committed.
That was the spoken public pledge. A few things here. The head of CENTCOM said there were 2,000 ISIS fighters in Afghanistan. You know what happened in western Iraq and eastern Syria in 2014. The caliphate was well established before we took it out. Right. How long before U.S. forces go back into Afghanistan?
Bill, we're going to stay laser focused on the threat that ISIS-K poses in Afghanistan and ISIS writ large throughout the region. And we have robust counterterrorism capabilities available to us, and we're going to use them. And I think that's what our focus is on now, making sure that Afghanistan can't become a safe haven for an attack against the homeland again. And we're watching as well, as I'm sure you're aware. Why were so many U.S. Marines outside that airport last Thursday? There was a dynamic security threat around the airport, as you well know, and we were trying to meter the gates off and on to keep people flowing in. Remember, this was an evacuation operation, so we had to keep some gates open so that we could move flow in and out. The whole idea was to get people out. And we're going to do an investigation. We'll figure out exactly what happened in a TikTok kind of a way as we move along. And certainly we grieve with the families of all those who were lost. I mean, this was a terrible, terrible day for the United States military, certainly for the United States writ large. Two more from me. We're at the end of August right now, as you all obviously know. Did anyone at the Pentagon ask the White House for more time? There was a very deliberate discussion inside the national security team about the timeline we were on, and the president made it very clear that he wanted us to look at contingency planning in case we needed to go beyond that. We made calculations all the way up to the end. But Bill, in the last 48 hours alone before we left, you saw us take 2 counterterrorism strikes against very imminent threats posed by ISIS-K as well. And we took rocket fire the very night that we were leaving onto the airport. So the security environment was changing rapidly. And And frankly, we not only didn't want to put our troops at greater risk, neither the evacuees, but also the people outside in Kabul, Afghan civilians who were in the midst of this increasing threat environment.
Did anyone at the Pentagon ask the White House for more forces before Kabul fell?
There was no need to ask for more forces because, before Kabul fell or after Kabul fell. I mean,
so that did not happen then, is what you're saying?
There was
no one from the Pentagon said, sir, we need to go above 2,500 or whatever the number was on that date.
I see. I misunderstood your question. I thought you were talking about the evacuation operations and the forces we put in. I won't talk about what military leaders were advising the president through the course of his decision-making process. What I can tell you, Bill, is that the Pentagon leadership here was fully invested in that process. Their voices were heard, and that's the way it should work. That you bring the interagency together, the national security team, they give their advice and counsel, and then the commander-in-chief makes a decision and moves out. That's the way it's supposed to work, and that's exactly how it worked here.
One thing from me, I do think it's important that it's expressed from us and for you that the military men and women obviously did as best they could with the circumstances that they were under and the resources that they had at their disposal and the time that they had to do it. My last question is about Mark Frericks. He is a Navy veteran. He is being held hostage by the Haqqani network. Was there any attempt to try to get the Taliban to let him go? And if there's no longer a military operation, do you consider this now something that the State Department should deal with?
This is something the entire United States government remains focused on, Dana, I can assure you, and that there has been a constant focus. With or without the non-combatant evacuation operation and what we've been doing the last couple of weeks, there has been a constant focus on his situation and on trying to get him home. And I can assure you that across the government, not just here, but across the government, we are laser focused on getting him returned home safely to his family where he belongs.
Sir, thank you for your time today, and we'll speak again very soon.
Thank you, Admiral.
Yeah, this guy's amazing. I mean, he's been doing the media rounds this morning, the Pentagon spokesperson. He said on Morning Joe this morning, and I quote, "We have Americans that get stranded in countries all the time." Direct quote. Now, Jen Psaki, as you remember, said, I think it's irresponsible. Remember when she scolded Steve Doocy? It's irresponsible to say Americans are stranded. They are not stranded. Remember that? The Al-Qaeda leadership, bin Laden's security chief, triumphantly returning to Afghanistan on a video. Can't make it up. Even leaving military dogs, as Dana Perino just brought up. Biden told George Stephanopoulos, if there's an American citizen left, we're going to stay until we get them all out. I don't know. I don't know how they polish this excrement, but Grandpa's going to come out and try to own it, and he wants a victory parade today. It's, as Richard Engel said, and you're going to hear, I'm going to play that for you with Colonel Kurt Schlichter in a little bit. Richard Engel of NBC News said this is a humbling day. And I think the American left is excited that it's a humbling day. I really do. I think they like that we've been diminished on the global stage, truth be told. I think they like the embarrassment. I think that they like that we've been brought to heel by a terrorist organization, taken down a peg. It is. I know Kurt Schlichter's not in good mood. He's been texting me that he's just in a states of rage over the last several days. So anyway, we'll talk with him coming up. Let me tell you about my friend and sponsor, the guy that makes this show possible. Harvey Durham is his name. HarveyDurham.com is his website. DURHAM. What does Harvey do? Harvey sells private sector health insurance. Harvey's in the business of helping people who buy their own health insurance save on premiums every month and get great quality coverage. Now, I don't know what kind of private health insurance you buy. Maybe you get it provided through work. Obviously, Harvey doesn't, unless you pay for it through work, in which case Harvey does work for you. You know, if work pays for your health insurance, this is a non-issue for you. But if you have to pay out of your own pocket for health insurance premiums, or you have very expensive co-pays, or you have to pay additionally to have family on your health insurance plan, or you're a small business owner and you buy your employees' health insurance, or you're a senior and you have to buy supplemental health insurance, you need to talk to Harvey. It's just going to take a couple minutes, literally 2-3 minutes. You call him at 615-572-5790, and you tell him what's up with your current health insurance and what you're paying a month. And he will quickly tell you, whoa, you're paying way too much. I can do better. Nah, that sounds about right. Or, hey, have you considered the ACA plan, the Obamacare plan. I know a lot of people aren't excited about it, but in some cases it might be the right fit for you. And Harvey will even hold your hand to go on the government-run option if that's the better way to go. His passion, his ministry, sincerely, is just saving people money. He wants to get you better coverage, or at least as quality of coverage as you have, but certainly better if he can. And he always wants you to save money. And he has saved people meaningful sums of money. I've heard some stories of people getting better coverage, like a third member of their family getting covered for $1,000 less than they're paying out of pocket with no copays. I got a follow-up email from that same guy that saved the $1,000. Now he has no copays either. So you talk about a savings, a huge savings. I've had emails from senior citizens who, they're on a fixed income and they save $75, $100 a month so that they can get some needed work done dental-wise or whatever. I mean, savings is savings is savings. And Harvey knows every private sector health insurance plan out there. So you call him, give him a couple of minutes. He's going to save you big-time money. And if he can't, he'll tell you so. He's not going to waste your time. 615-572-5790. He's my friend. He's our title sponsor. He helps make this show possible. HarveyDurham.com. I shot a video with him. By the way, keep watching on Newsmax here in the coming days and weeks. I'll be popping up talking about Harvey on Newsmax from time to time. I'm excited. He's asked me to do a little TV for him, so I'm honored and happy to do that because I love what he does. I love telling people about him. My video, my interview with him on my website at chrisstigall.com. We run through a lot of scenarios about how some people even get checks in the mail after they've gone to a doctor or hospital visit because of the insurance that Harvey puts them on. No kidding. He explains some of that. 615-572-5790, HarveyDurham.com, or watch that video with Harvey if you want to get to know him before you make the call. That's at chrisstigall.com. I was just talking with Fast Eddie about this because I understand. People are very, very frustrated, and I understand that people are dispirited and disappointed and sickened and saddened and all of those things that we all feel about the direction of the country. And here's the thing that I get often. And we got to, Fast Eddie just got in my ear during the break, and he said, someone called and they say, what do we do? All you do is talk about what's wrong. I don't know what to do. And I said to Eddie, if I had an answer for how to improve the IQ and apathy of most of our 330 million fellow Americans, I'd bottle sell it and be a multimillionaire. I certainly wouldn't be sitting here on the radio. I myself am not God. I can't make everyone care and get involved. If there were pictures on our television screens like there were during Black Lives Matter, for instance, the Tea Party's efficacy back in 2009? I mean, there is strength in numbers. When the masses turn out in the streets in places like Australia and Germany, it's very difficult to ignore when people get engaged. We're just, look, I mean, if I'm going to be really blunt, this is true. It's always been a problem for we conservatives. We like minding our own business. We're busy. We're raising kids. We've got businesses to run. We're productive, busy people. We're not busybodies. We're not meddlers. We don't like causing trouble. We keep to ourselves. And that's great. That's the uniqueness and greatness of the American spirit. But unfortunately, on the left, all they do is rabble-rouse. And their China-breaking, loud obnoxiousness always floods the zone while we mind our own business. We're terrible at mobilizing. We're terrible at donating. We're terrible at running for things. They're not. It's their lifeblood. So when people say, what do we do? I don't know what to do. Why can't we fix? Well, I wish I could tell you what to do. Why? But I don't have that answer other than to say until more of, and you're seeing it. You are seeing it. You are seeing a tide turn in school boards and local elections. Until our county commissioners, our school boards, our representatives in our districts, in all 435 of them across the country, until those people hear from most of us who are pissed off, things won't change. But it's gonna have to be up to more than a talk show host and a talk radio audience, frankly, that's not nearly big enough. Yes, I wish everybody were listening to me. I do. I wish everybody were talk radio listeners. I wish everybody read Colonel Kurt Schlichter at Town Hall. And a lot of people do. But not most. Maybe we'll change that someday, Colonel. Good morning.
Well, look, just because a lot of people suck doesn't mean that... I mean, allegedly, according to sources that I don't necessarily believe, a majority voted for that doddering old zombie who just betrayed the American citizens, Afghans who helped us, and of course dogs with his cowardly retreat. So they got that going for them. They can own that.
Colonel Kurt Schlichter is my colleague at townhall.com. He writes thrice weekly there. He's got a series of fantastic Kelly Turnbull novels available now at Amazon. Colonel, it's the big 20-year anniversary, and Biden very proudly going to take a victory lap today. We're out. I ended this long, painful war. He's going to want credit today. You going to give it?
I'm going to struggle to stay FCC compliant as to what I'm going to give him. But what he's given us is a giant stain on the history of the United States. What a grotesque betrayal. He's a disaster in every level. The only person happy right now is Jimmy Carter, because he's not the worst president in the last half century. And James Buchanan is somewhere in his grave going, come on, you can do it. You pervert creep. You can do it. You can do it. You can be the worst and save me from the bottom.
I want to start with this notion of weapons left behind. I'm really I'm unaware. I'm unclear of what battlefield procedure is. Is this typical? Is this normal that we would have all of these? I mean, billions of dollars worth of weaponry and vehicles left behind for the Taliban's disposal?
Well, of course, nothing's normal, but for decades we kept coming across M16s that we left behind in South Vietnam. That the Soviets redistributed among their pals as they became ascendant in the wake of that Democrat betrayal. One that Joe Biden personally participated in as well. He voted to abandon the South Vietnamese. Just like he's abandoned the Americans in Afghanistan. I'm not so worried about the big systems. The helicopters won't work for long. The planes probably won't work at all. The vehicles will break down, except for the simpler civilian-type ones. As for the rifles, they're going to enjoy those. But we're going to be treated to more pictures of guys dolled up like American troops.
I want to,
shouting their 7th century shouts. And
Ed, would you cue up Richard Engel from last night? NBC News. Richard Engel, a guy who is a hardcore leftist. He always has been. Certainly no conservative whatsoever. But last night on NBC, he said this about our exit and about Joe Biden. Listen to this.
I don't know any way other to describe it. I do not envy him for having had to make that statement, to speak to the American people, but also to speak to others who served in Afghanistan, including his own family members, and to tell them that we came, we fought, and we're leaving, and we're handing over the country back to the same enemy, and that we coordinated with the enemy so that they could make sure we packed up and left on time. It is a moment of deep humility. The United States has been humbled.
I'm not so sure the left isn't thrilled at what he just said, to be very honest with you.
Well, look, the shame is part of the kink in leftism. They enjoy that part of it. One of the few bits of consolation is 5 years after the last Democrat betrayal of an ally is the fact that Ronald Reagan came along. But it's going to get worse before it gets better. After Saigon, we had the Tehran Iranian hostage crisis, and finally, threw out the next Democrat. If you're Taiwan, you got to be wondering what the hell's going on. If you look at the Democrat Party as currently constituted, they would absolutely allow something like this to happen in Israel. It's just it's just horrifying on every level, and I'm so livid I can barely compose words.
Ed Morrissey tweeted something pretty amazing that there's video of one of bin Laden's guys, a Taliban, what is he? Let me find it here. Bin Laden's security chief triumphantly returning to Afghanistan with Taliban protection. There's video of him in a car. Hey, thumbs up, heading back. I mean, it's after Biden promised Al-Qaeda gone from Afghanistan just 10 days ago.
Why would he keep that promise? He's literally kept none of them. I'm not sure it's his fault. I mean, he's demonstrably senile. He might not remember it. I mean, it's not like he's focused on this. It's not an episode of Matlock. But you've got to understand. Biden is a combination of astonishing incompetence, utter dishonesty, and at the same time, this bizarre self-regard where he just thinks he's a genius. And this is typical of our garbage elite. This is what they do. Every institution is run by the equivalent of a Joe Biden. Maybe they haven't stumbled all the way down the dementia steps, but they're all failures. Everything is a failure right now.
Help me understand, Colonel. Is this a purposeful political decision that is made out of trying to take a victory lap and celebrate this commemorative 9/11 20th anniversary? Is this purely or is it purposeful destruction, knowing that it would embarrass and weaken and strengthen, our enemy in the region? I mean, maybe is it too far to say that's strengthening our enemy, and they kind of like that a little bit?
Well, I mean, enemies love this, and he was willing to do whatever it takes to have his little optics. And I don't think he wanted this particular result in the sense that it's going to be devastating for him. Now, you can get on Twitter and find the 2,000-follower liberal blue checks explaining how actually this is a great thing, and the administration has shown amazing efficiency in its total submission.
I stand with Biden.
7th century creed.
Yeah, hashtag I stand with Biden.
Yeah, but I mean, normal people look at it and go, what the hell? I mean, it's kind of like what we're experiencing here in California with the recall. I know a lot of Democrats, and they really don't like Republicans, but they like hobos taking a dump in their front yard even less.
Yeah.
This guy, Joe Biden is that hobo.
What do you make of leaving Americans? Is that something that we should have pledged we do not pull our military out until we know every American is legitimately out?
How do you even? I mean, he sat there, told us he wasn't going to do it, and American. The American mindset is that you don't do it. And then he did it. And, of course, our garbage media kind of like is scratching its head going, are we supposed to say something? This doesn't seem right. He said this yesterday. I mean, usually there's a bigger interval so people forget. And, of course, he's lying. And, of course, he doesn't care. And, of course, what's going to happen is, that it is going to become a hostage crisis. And then what's this guy going to do? And it's going to come to President DeSantis to clean up his mess, as Bush had to clean up Clinton's in a way. If Clinton had been man enough to kill Bin Laden in the late 90s, maybe we wouldn't have this. But I think what's going to come, though, you remember how horrified the establishment was about Reagan. Oh my gosh, these terrible cowboys. The next guy's gonna not be nice, and that's okay with me, because I think maybe we need to be a little less, pronoun people and a little more Roman, because you didn't screw with the Romans twice.
I have a brother-in-law in Qatar right now who is part of a team taking in, these Afghan refugees. He says it's utter chaos. And I read today, here locally in Philadelphia, we're a quote lily pad for some of these refugees being flown here into Philadelphia International Airport. And then they're being sent to Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst. What happens with all these hundreds of thousands of Afghan refugees that we're temporarily housing and putting in our bases and things? What do we do there?
Yeah, it's temporary.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that about? What do you think about that? How do we take these people in, and where do they go? What do we do with them?
Well, look, everybody talks about interpreters, and I'm kind of wondering why they need interpreters at these camps, since they're full of interpreters. You know, they're not all interpreters. And the idea of importing a new group of people to replace existing Americans is, we're not supposed to say it, but it's painfully obvious, and they in fact will say it. So this is just more of the same. Now we got an excuse to bring it in. And of course, bringing people over from a 7th century culture, that's going to work really well with America, at least non-Democrat run areas of America. It's just more of it. And all these things are building up. This utter humiliation, and bringing in Afghans, opening the southern border, $5 a gallon gas, just thing after thing after thing. And I think you're going to see a backlash, and I think you're going to see a reaction that liberals aren't going to like, because I don't see us as Australians kind of like, shrugging our shoulders, taking our kangaroos, and locking ourselves in the house because the politicians told us so.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a pushback here, and I think it's going to be kind of earth-shattering.
Meanwhile, literally as we talk, CNN is doing a story about the disinformation campaign on display over Afghan withdrawal. They're back to Russia. Russia is pumping our media full of disinformation about our great leader, Joe Biden. How dare they?
They're making it look worse?
Yes, that's what they're saying. Their claim is our foreign enemies are making Biden look worse, and they're to blame, not Biden.
I see. Yeah, okay.
Russian propaganda, that's what you are.
You can tell what it stops being propaganda, and just it starts being almost rote, where, all right, go with Russia on this one. Get Stelter on it.
Yeah, when things are bad for our side, it's got to be Russia's fault. It's Russia to blame.
It's got to be Russia. It managed to leave without being totally humiliated.
Colonel Kurt Schlichter at townhall.com, thrice weekly. You've got a column coming up for Wednesday, I know. And the Kelly Turnbull series as well. People can buy now at Amazon. Your latest is just out, fresh, hot, new, doing very well. Anything else we need to know about your work out there, besides your prolific tweets?
Well, I have a new book deal with Regnery, The Fall and Rise of America. As pessimistic as I sound, I'm ultimately optimistic. But what comes next may not be what a lot of people on the left wanted, and I think I think we're in for some turbulent times, and I think you should follow my advice and buy guns and ammunition.
Colonel Kurt Schlichter, thank you, my friend.
Thanks, man.
John Stillman at StillmanVolvoCars.com. That's the website. You shopping for a new car? Why don't you make it a Volvo? Why don't you take a look at these incredible Volvo products that I've been driving now for the last couple of years, courtesy of Stillman Volvo. Currently behind the wheel of the XC60. It's a pretty red car. Beautiful black leather interior. I love the roominess. I've been gushing about the XC60 and the XC90 for a while now. They've got four-door sedan versions, too, with a lot of giddy-up. If you like a little speed, you like to open it up a little bit when nobody's around, you know what I'm saying? Those are the best. Really powerful cars, beautifully made, but most of all designed for your safety on the open road. The one thing that John impressed upon me when I first got to know about the Volvo products, John and I have been friends for a long while now. His dad, Ed, his brothers, his mother, his whole family, his grandfather, his uncles, they're all involved in 4 generations of selling these great products, and they're so proud of being members of the community there in Westchester on Highway 202. You don't have to live in southeastern Pennsylvania or Westchester, Pennsylvania to shop with Stillman Volvo. They'd love to have you drop in on their lot and take one of these great Volvos for a test drive. And I highly recommend you do, because you'll love working with these people. You love meeting them. But for 4 generations, they've been selling these products, and they're so proud to do so, because they know their safety record. You know, they design these things to be fatality-free. That is Volvo Corporate. They have a whole website devoted to the concept of the safety of their vehicles, volvosavemylife.com. John tells me of these amazing stories. Doctors have walked into emergency rooms expecting to see, based on accident reports, something really dramatic, and then they see somebody in the hospital that's been brought in with some minor injuries, and immediately, this is just a true story, doctors will assess and say, you must have been in a Volvo. I mean, ER docs, EMTs, firefighters, cops, when they've been on accident scenes involving a Volvo, they're so impressed, frankly, if people are properly buckled in, how well people fare in serious accidents in Volvos. They show up on the weekends during their time off to buy Volvo products from Stillman Volvo. They also have a great pre-owned inventory, which you can shop at StillmanVolvoCars.com. His brother Brad oversees that operation, John Stillman's brother Brad Stillman. So it's a great family. It's a great team of people, and I do hope, I really do, just as a personal favor, if nothing else, you reach out to the Stillman Volvo team and tell them Chris said hi, and thank them, even if you don't end up buying a car. I hope you'll at least reach out and thank them for sponsoring the show and being great friends and patriots in support of this show for as long as they have, and they continue to be. We're grateful to be associated with them. They're wonderful people, believers, people of faith, great Americans, and great community members. You'll feel great about buying a really wonderful product from Stillman Volvo, StillmanVolvoCars.com. This from the New York Times today. May I ask you a question? Do you think that mask wearing is a civil right? I'm serious. Is mask wearing a civil right? Because there are people in our midst, our fellow citizens, who think wearing a mask is a civil right, and that somehow banning mask mandates is an infringement on that civil right. Now, I want you to really think about this for a minute. Let's walk this out, because this is happening. This is happening across the country, and it's happening here in our backyard. The U.S. Department of Education investigating 5 states over their mask mandate bans. I beg pardon, when was the Department of Education given investigatory powers over a state exactly? Can someone explain to me who the hell did it? If you gave me unilateral authority to eliminate one department of the government today, the first one I would pick is the Department of Education. It's the first one, and I know that is a tall order to ask someone which one would you eliminate first, because there's lots of wasteful ones. That's the one I'd pick first. Seriously. It's the most useless. Education, much like policing, was never meant to be centralized. You hear this? Education was never meant to be centralized out of Washington, D.C. Your community knows best how to govern itself and educate itself. There should be no central planning of how we educate our children, which, of course, is what Democrats have long wanted for decades. Now the Education Department is so bold, and Democrats are so puffed up about its importance, they've initiated investigations into 5 states whose prohibitions on universal mask mandates in schools may run afoul of civil rights laws. Protecting students with disabilities, federal officials announced Monday. Now, what's the biggest flaw in this rationale that we're going to investigate civil rights abuses of people with disabilities? What's the, how do I say this? When you say to a state that bans mask mandates, you're violating potentially disabled children's civil rights, why is that a specious argument immediately? Why right away do you know that that's bunk? Because it's not a ban on masks. It's a ban on mandates. It does not say you can't wear a mask in school in these states who have been. It's a ban on mandates. It's not a ban on masks. Get it straight. Don't lie about what this is. Telling people we're not going to mandate behaviors is not a ban on the behavior. Let me say it again so it sinks in. Not mandating a behavior is not a ban on the behavior. There seems to be this confusion that if a governor like DeSantis, like the one in Iowa, these governors, Iowa, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Utah, these governors that say, you're not doing mask mandates in these states, we're not allowing it. So the Department of Education comes in and thumps its chest. We're going to investigate you. We think you're in violation of civil rights. Here's my answer as a governor. I didn't say students can't wear masks. Did you hear there's a group of parents suing here in our backyard? Central Bucks, as I told you last week, Central Bucks, mask optional. That's what they voted. Mask optional. We're not mandating masks. You want to wear them, fine. You don't want to wear them, fine. Why suddenly have we become a country of mandates? How is it that the United States in 2021 has a citizenry, a lot of them? There are too many people that want mandates. They want mandated behavior for something that they can choose to do if they wish. They want mandated behavior. And I dare anybody to call this show and defend the notion of mandating behaviors instead of making it a choice. As it relates to mask mandates specifically, you call me and justify for me why you can't simply put on a mask if you want to wear a mask, but how it's a violation of someone with a disability's civil rights if we don't mandate mask wearing. It's not stopping you. It's not stopping your child. And you want to know what the truth is about this? I was really thinking about this on the way in, because I read this mask mandate story. Investigations make good on the Biden administration's promise to use the federal government's muscle, including civil rights investigations and legal action, to intervene in states where governors and other policymakers have come out against mask mandates in public schools. The CDC recommends everyone in school wear masks regardless of their vaccination status. In letters to state leaders, the acting assistant secretary for civil rights said the department would explore whether the prohibitions, quote, may be preventing schools from meeting their legal obligations not to discriminate based on disability and from providing an equal educational opportunity to students with disabilities who are at heightened risk of severe illness from COVID-19. The department said it has not opened investigations in Florida, Texas, Arkansas, or Arizona because those states' bans on universal indoor masking are not being enforced in schools because of litigation. So there are in total several states, Florida, Arkansas, Arizona, Texas, as well as Iowa, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Utah, all banning mask mandates, and the Department of Education flexing its muscle and using the Civil Rights Code. Can I be honest with you? Do you want to know what this is? It dawned on me. This is what it is. I was really trying to get my head wrapped around why would parents sue? Why would parents in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, sue a school district simply for giving children and parents the option of wearing masks? You know what it is? They know that if kids and parents are given the option, most kids and parents wouldn't choose to put a mask on their face. And their fear, their total fear of either this virus or whatever, they want to wear masks. And you know what they're afraid of? What they're more afraid of than COVID? Is that their fear will be exposed. Listen to me. This is important. Chris is onto something. It's psychology. Ready? Here we go. These people are terrified of being exposed for being as afraid of the world as they are. They're embarrassed of themselves. I maintain that the mask loyalists in our midst are embarrassed of how fearful they are. And so they want everyone to behave as they do, as to literally mask their fear. They want everyone to join them in their act of terror and being terrified. Everyone must join them in their masking so they don't stand out as fools. I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry. I'm going to be that blunt. It's not enough for people who are afraid to wear a mask. They're afraid of being exposed as being whatever you want to call it. Look, I don't want to. I've tried very hard to not make this about you want to wear a mask versus me who doesn't, and that you're a bad guy or girl. Like, I have no. When I see people pulling their shirt up over their face or wearing 5 masks or whatever the hell, or see people jogging with them, or I see somebody driving alone in the car, do I snarkily say something to myself or in my head, or to somebody in the car with me, look at that idiot? I do. I shouldn't. I'm sorry. I admit it. I confess. I'm a bad guy. I'm a sinner. I fall short. I do. Sorry. I don't come on the air and go, hey, everybody, I just saw Lois Smith at the park yesterday. She was wearing 2 masks like an idiot. Everybody who sees Lois Smith at Vanguard today ought to mock her relentlessly for it. I don't do that. I make a snarky comment in my head. If I see somebody with 5 masks on their head at Wawa, do I walk up, excuse me, idiot? No, I leave them alone. Bygones, whatever. Same for people with purple hair. Or those giant plates in their earlobes. Disgusting, weird, don't like it. Do I run up to people and address it? I do not. Bygones. United States of America for now. You're free to do what you want to do. You want to wear 300 masks? You want to wear a diving helmet? You want to wear a scuba suit with an oxygen tank strapped to your back and walk around to get gas at Wawa? Do it. I don't care. I have nothing to say to you. But don't ask me to do it because you look like an idiot. That's the psychology of this. I figured it out. It took me a minute. Now I know. These people do not want to be exposed as the frightened, terrorized, weak people they feel like they are inside. So they would rather drag everybody along with them so that we're all wearing the same costume they are, so that they don't stand out as being terrified. Now, I am not suggesting that there aren't people who have real worry to be concerned and vigilant about their health because they have comorbidities or other things. I am not saying that in every case this is purely psychological. I know that there are vulnerable people in our midst. I know that's true. I'm not suggesting it's not. But you know what I have found consistently is true? Vulnerable people with comorbidities, people that understand the health risks, they take precautions. They know how to behave. They've always known how to behave because before COVID, they had concerns, and they were mindful of it. This is all rooted in psychology. The American left wants us all behind masks to communicate fear and weakness and submission. Individuals who sue school districts and scream and yell and beat their chests and demand that all our children and all of us be behind masks together, that's to mask their own hang-ups, their own fright, their own fear, their own insecurity. They don't want to be exposed as being as weak and compromised and frightened as they are. And they know that if given the chance, if given the choice, most Americans would not choose to strap a mask to their face. That's not acceptable. It's like I would love to eat a whole pizza every night. I would love to sit down and eat a whole pizza every single night. But you know what happens if I did? I would gain back all 85 pounds I've lost in the last 7 months and then some. I would get very, very, very obese, right?
Yeah.
If I ate a pizza every night like I want to, I'd get very, very obese. But that inside, Chris Stigall, quietly, inside, I'm giving you a little peek inside. Quietly, Chris Stigall would love to eat whole pizzas every night. And quiet, secretly, like I quit drinking 2.5 years ago. Every now and again, would I love to whack back some bourbon? Oh, you bet. So you know what would be easier is if I made everybody else become morbidly obese and eat pizzas along with me every night and get real drunk on bourbon. If I could get everyone around me to get drunk on bourbon and eat pizza every night, we'd all be drunk and morbidly obese, and then I wouldn't stand out anymore, would I?
No.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is the mask psychology. Because I'm scared of the virus, I want everybody else to act in kind. If I wear the mask and not everybody else is made to, I stand out as looking like the scared lunatic. I don't want to stand out looking like the scared lunatic, so I need everybody to be afraid with me. And if everyone's afraid with me, then I'm not going to stand out as the scared lunatic. We're all wearing masks, you see. And that's the truth of it. And if you really get down to the nub of it, that's the truth. There are a handful of us that have real health concerns. But overwhelmingly, the vast majority of these people who are attacking school districts and states and governors, it's a psychology. For the American left, they want it as a political tool. They want it as an instrument to use, to scare, to intimidate, to submit, to weaken. They want us all in this costume to weaken us all as a movement. For the individual who has the psychosis, they want everybody to do what they're doing so that they don't stand out. Follow? There. I've solved it. Case closed. Headline from Fox News yesterday, over 100 House Republicans signed letter promising not to vote to raise the debt ceiling, saying Democrats should, quote, take responsibility for increasing the debt ceiling because of their trillions in proposed government spending. The letter drafted says Democrats have embarked on a massive and unprecedented deficit spending spree without a single Republican vote. They passed $1.9 trillion in COVID relief in March. Now they've passed $3.5 trillion budget resolution, again without a single Republican vote. They add, in order for this spending to occur, our nation's debt limit will have to be increased significantly. Because Democrats are responsible for the spending, they need to take responsibility for increasing the debt ceiling. So it's 103 total supporters of the letter. There's 212 members in the conference. So that's about half of the Republicans who've signed off on this letter. It should be a full 213, should it not? Steve Moore, our chief economist, good morning. Steve-O, you with us? Oh, sorry. Steve, good morning.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that, pal.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely with you. I don't understand why every one of the 212 Republicans has not signed that letter. It is outrageous. Democrats want Republicans to sign on to their multi-trillion-dollar debt increase. And if I'm a Republican, I say, hell no. You guys broke it. You fix it. You fixed it. You broke it. They are on a spending spree like none other in the history of the United States, especially at a time of peace. I mean, this isn't World War II we're in. And, they keep passing these bills without a single Republican vote, and then they want the Republicans to vote to raise the debt ceiling. I'm mystified where the other 112 Republicans are, frankly, Chris. I mean, come on. Are they going to be aid and abet the Democrats' spending spree by voting for the debt ceiling bill?
Meanwhile, the Democrats are attacking the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, and I'm not entirely sure I understand why. Have you followed that? Can you explain what's going on there?
I can't. I mean, I would think they'd be praising Jerome Powell because Powell keeps pumping money into the economy and continues to allow this, kind of facilitate this spending spree. So I don't exactly understand. Do they want the Fed to pump even more money into the economy? Because obviously that would lead to even more inflation. I mean, this is the problem I have right now. I mean, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said last week in Jackson Hole that they're going to stand pat with their policy of continue to buy assets and continue the zero interest rate policies and pump money into the economy. Why in the world are Democrats opposed to that? Now, I'm opposed to it. I think the Fed is behind the curve in fighting inflation, but Democrats want to just turn the spigot on. More money, more money. Everybody, you don't have to, if you're a sixth grader, you understand that causes more inflation.
To move forward, writes the squad, AOC and the rest, there's 5 of them, to move forward with a whole-of-government approach that eliminates climate risk while making our financial system safer. We need a chair who is committed to these objectives, and we urge the Biden administration to use this opportunity to appoint a new chair. Under his leadership, the Federal Reserve has taken very little action to mitigate the risk of climate change that our financial system poses.
Are you joking?
I'm not. That's their statement yesterday.
So now the Fed is responsible for combating climate change. That's a good one. I mean, look, these people are insane. I mean, here we have, the pandemic is we're trying to bring this to an end. We've got the shame of what happened in Afghanistan. We've got a border that we can't control. We've got inflation out of control. And these lunatics all they think about is climate change. I mean, my God, it is really a weird world we're living in. But I don't know. I'm really sensing there's a real backlash. I mean, you've seen what's happened, Chris, this week with Biden's approval ratings. They've plummeted. He's way lower than even Trump ever was. And Trump was obviously a very polarizing figure. And now I think Americans are starting to wake up to the fact these people are really serious. They really want to spend and borrow $4.5 trillion. They want the biggest tax increase ever. They want the Green New Deal. They want, they're going to try to nationalize the healthcare system. I mean, by the way, I talked to my friend who's a Senate staffer, Chris, last week.
Yes.
He told me they now think that bill that they're crafting, this so-called reconciliation bill, 15,000 pages.
Oh.
15,000 pages. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how many members of Congress do you think will actually read that bill?
Yeah. Very few. And do you think that...
Zero.
Yeah, well, you're right. Unless they may have their staffs try, but yeah, you're right. Yeah. They probably won't sit and read it. No, you were very down on this last week. You were convinced that it was just a fait accompli, that $3.5 trillion would happen. Are you still there?
Now I don't. Yeah, my opinion has changed. I mean, I think that the events of the last week have depleted every last drop of political capital this president has. I think the American people have completely lost faith, and for good reason, in his judgment. And so I think this is going to be a heavy lift for the Democrats. I'll tell you this, Chris. I'm going to devote every single hour of every single day, 24/7, from now until I think this is going to will probably go till Christmas, to stop this horrendous bill. I've been in this business now for 35 years, and this is the single worst and most dangerous bill I have seen out of Congress ever in my lifetime. It is going to bankrupt the country, folks. We all know it's wrong. I don't care if you're a liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, independent, libertarian. We know it's wrong to borrow $4.5 trillion from our children and grandchildren. I love, AOC and Nancy Pelosi are out. We have to do this for the children. I'm like, we have to leave $4.5 trillion of that for our children? Gee, they're going to be real thankful we did that.
And, Steve, the disconnect for me always, and I know we shouldn't ever, through the years that I've been trying to learn better how to talk about the economy through the help of guys like you, the stock market is always sort of an independent indicator.
Right.
There's always kind of a disconnect. Like, the market continues to tick up. Even through the mess of this last week, it's ticking up. It's weird. You wouldn't expect it. I was fully expecting a downturn, and it's not happening yet.
So it's a paradox. And by the way, the run up in the stock market this year has been incredible. I mean, the United States, just to give you a sense of how big this rally has been, just the increase in the valuation of American stocks and assets over this last year is greater than the entire value of every Chinese company. So, this has been an incredible bull market run. I wouldn't buy stocks right now. I think the price is pretty high, and the old rule is, buy low, sell high. So, but I will say this, though, that I think one of the things, I talk to my friends on Wall Street, some people are much smarter about this stuff than I am, and they think the reason the market is rallying right now is precisely because Biden has crashed and burned. And that means the betting on Wall Street is that Biden will not pass this $3.5 trillion spending bill, that most of the worst features of it will be taken out. I'll just give you one example, because this is, as I said, this is going to be a 10,000, 15,000 page bill. So we could talk for every minute, every hour your show is on from now until Christmas and never even get to all of the horrible things in this bill. But one that we just did a new study at the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, where we looked at the impact of this increase in the death tax. And I don't know if you've followed this, because there's so much else going on, but Biden wants to have a 43% death tax. So let's say someone, you buy a farm, let's say it's for $350,000, and then the next 30 or 40 years, you build up that farm. You put all the investment in it. You have the irrigation system. You've cultivated the fields. You've blah 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 blah. You've got a farm that's worth, say, after 40 years of work, it's worth maybe $7 or $8 million. When you die, you're gonna have to pay a 40% tax on that increase in the valuation. You're going to literally have people, Chris, if that's the way, literally selling the farm to pay the taxes. This is going to kill family-owned businesses, Chris, and that's the backbone of our economy. People like my dad, who spent their whole life building up their business, they pay their taxes every single day. They pay their property taxes, their gas taxes, their income taxes, their state income taxes, their blah 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 blah. They pay the taxes their whole life. Then they die, and they have to turn over half of their business to the government. That's outrageous.
And is that you may not go this dark or this hard, but as I hear you talk about that and I really think about the motivation behind that, people aren't dumb. People in Washington understand what that means. And what that says to me, here was immediately what I thought. People in charge don't want families like yours to pass on generational wealth. They want to stop that.
Exactly.
They want to stop it. They want to hurt it. Yeah.
They do. And by the way, that was if you go back and read Das Kapital, by Karl Marx, one of the things that the communist socialists wanted to do was stop the intergenerational transfer of wealth. And if you want to do that, you just tax it away. And then you ask the question, well, why would somebody then build up a business? Like that, if the government's going to take it away from you when you die. This is a terrible idea. It'll destroy. We all know, some of the great businesses in America were passed on from one generation to the next, and they continue to build it. That's what creates jobs in this country. And so it is a very real threat to our free market capitalist system and our system of free enterprise. And so that's just one little example, though. We estimate that if you do that, you're going to lose over the next 10 years 1 million jobs, because those family-owned businesses won't expand. They won't hire more workers. Why do it if the government's going to take it all away from you?
Steve, economically speaking, quickly, I don't mean to make you weigh in so much on immigration, but I will say, as I ponder, thousands and thousands and thousands of Afghan refugees coupled with the hundreds of thousands of people crossing the border to our south, we're importing a lot of people very fast. And I wonder economically what that means to you.
Well, it depends. I mean, if they're productive people who are going to work hard, and most immigrants come into the country, work hard, they become productive citizens. So, if we can, I want to make sure that we can assimilate, that many people coming from Afghanistan. But, I think we have a moral obligation. And, look, the problem isn't right now immigrants coming to the country. It's Americans who are sitting on the sideline not working. Let's get rid of this massive welfare state. But just last week, Biden says he wants to extend the unemployment benefits, and he wants to allow the states to spend money because by next week, by the way, is supposed to be Liberation Day, when businesses can finally, bring their workers back because the extra unemployment benefits. No, Biden's saying no, give them more months of unemployment benefits. We have 10 million jobs opening in this country. Then he increased food stamps. You see that? 25% increase in food stamps. I mean, why would people work if the government's going to give you free rent, free food, free money, free child care, free this, free that? I mean, we're going to become a total dependency culture. And maybe that's what their objective is,
yes,
to make everybody dependent on government.
I was talking to a bartender. He's a part-time bartender, and he and I were just having a conversation in passing the other day, and he said to me, Chris, you would be amazed in the evenings what I overhear at the bar. He doesn't eavesdrop, but, bartenders hear everything. And he says, I've been overhearing guys talking and saying very candidly, yep, looks like I'm going to have to go back to work. Unemployment's running out.
Right.
I mean, they're lamenting the fact that their joyride is over. They've got to go back to work because the government check's drying up. He's heard it, literally heard it.
You know what? To make a serious point about that, when you have people you now have people who haven't worked for 18 months.
Yeah.
18 months they've been on the government dole. Well, think about what that does to your job skills, to your employability, to your motivation to work. It's terrible. We're not doing a service to people keeping out of the workforce. If you're unemployed, go out there and get a job and do it now, because that's best for your family. The statistics are so clear about this, that there's dignity in work. There is dignity in work, and that is one of the most important principles in America. And so hopefully we're after Labor Day, we're going to get people back into work. But my God, I read the Wall Street Journal headline today and says that the 40-year, or the 20-year war, America's longest war, ends. And I thought it really should say that America's longest war ends ignominiously, because this is a humiliation.
Yep.
And it makes me sad. It makes me sad as an American to see what happens.
Steve Moore, our chief economist. He's an economist at Freedom Works. Always a pleasure, Steve. We'll talk next week.
Okay, Chris. Have a good one. Take care.
All right. Yeah, before I get out of here, there I was minding my own business last night. And Christina, now, you guys know that I'm in the process of moving right now, and Christine is back in Philadelphia with me, helping pack up the house and get the last-minute stuff done before we leave for good. So we've been super busy. Just crazy busy. I haven't watched any TV. I haven't, I sit down in the evenings before bed, and then get up early in the morning and do some prep and reading before the shows begin. But all of yesterday and into the evening, we were working around the house, boxing things up, cleaning things up, sweeping or whatever. Stopped to get some dinner, and phone is just buzzing. And I just said, I'm so tired. I said, whatever it is, it can wait. I'll check later. And we got back to the hotel. We're staying in a hotel because we have no bed anymore. Movers came and took it all. So that's weird. And so we're in the hotel last night. I lay down after having some dinner, and I open up my phone, and I've got texts from people I haven't heard from in, 20 years saying, I saw you on Tucker Carlson. I said, what do you mean you saw me on Tucker Carlson? Tucker read one of your tweets. I had no idea, but apparently the Tucker Carlson folks found one of my tweets from a week ago, and this was about Biden telling everybody that we should mask up and mask up our kids if we know what's good for them. And it really ticked me off. And so I tweeted about Hunter, and I guess the people at the Tucker show liked it. And yeah, I know. Look, I don't know Tucker. I've never met Tucker other than once at a dinner. One time I met him. He's a super nice, generous guy, very nice with his time. He doesn't know me from Adam. I've never been on Tucker's show. I don't think he's ever been on mine. And nobody who sees my name, my last name, and if they don't know me and they haven't heard it spoken, they're not going to know how to pronounce it. So, yeah, here's another Stiegel. A lot of people saying, he said Stiegel. Well, people don't you know the name because you hear me say it every day and you listen, and I appreciate it. Tucker Carlson doesn't know me from Adam. But here's what happened last night.
As accustomed as we've all become to the shameless insanity of 2021, pregnant fighter pilots, birthing men, vaccinated triathletes jogging with their masks on, it is worth pausing for a moment before letting this one pass. So here's the response to Joe Biden from a radio show host called Chris Stiegel, who apparently also has kids. Quote, make sure your child isn't chucking illegal guns in dumpsters while impregnating strippers while strung out on heroin with fraudulent identification in a rental car, cashing checks from foreign governments using your name. Then talk to me about parenting, geezer. Which honestly is good advice for raising kids. It's at least as important as wearing a mask on the playground, we would say.
Thank you.
I don't know. I didn't get a harumph out of that guy. Give the governor harumph. Harumph? You watch your ass.
No, I'm not very proud of that, but I sort of am proud of that. Heard from a lot of you. Thank you for the well wishes. Yes, I know he said Stiegel. What am I going to do? Correct him? Write it. Hey, Tucker, you got my name wrong. Someday I'll meet him and say, hey, it's Stiegel. Speaking of which, Tammy Bruce has invited me to be back on her show Thursday night. She's filling it on Fox News Primetime, so I'll be back. She also, when she reads it in the teleprompter, she says Stiegel. Everybody that reads my name who doesn't know it pronounces it Stiegel, and I don't know how to fix that. I've had it written out phonetically in teleprompters. I tell producers ahead of time if I know it's coming. Hey, by the way, it's Stiegel, and they normally tell the host, and then the host gets it right. But if they don't know me, I don't expect them to know it. I'm not hung up on it, folks. A lot of you are indignant on my behalf, but don't be. It's what is it they say? It's an honor just to be nominated. I respect Tucker's work a lot. His audience is obviously vast. I heard from everybody. I heard people from California to Alabama, Florida, and Massachusetts, and in Minnesota. I heard from people all over the country. So that guy's audience is huge, and it was a thrill to just be mentioned in tweet yesterday. So wanted to thank you for reaching out and saying hello. All right, that's going to do it for me. Have a great day. We'll cover Biden's whatever nonsense he's going to sputter out today. We'll have that all tomorrow right here.
The Chris DeGaulle Show Podcast.